Greetings, family. Sab Yoga here. I'm with a great friend, George Mays, and today we're talking about self-love. This is the first of the episode series. I'm having a guest on my Facebook page, and it's an honor to have him. And today we're going to address self-love.
So this came about when I was watching an IG Live with Lamont, and I never click on IG Live, but I saw that Cyber Yoga was starting an IG Live, and I clicked over instinctively, and he started talking freely and unabashedly about self-love in the most honest form on IG Live, and I was going through a really difficult time myself, and I thought, wow, I really connect with what Lamont is doing, because he didn't really have an agenda. He was opening the conversation to the audience to participate, and it was just very honest. So we met for coffee, and we thought we'd talk about how to discuss self-love, especially amongst men, which seems to be a very difficult thing for us to do when we are adults. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, George, for clarifying that. Yeah, I just listen. I'm a feeler. I feel, and I feel like when it's a call, the time is right to share what I feel, what's on my mind and my soul. It's going to resonate and connect with those that are on the same frequency or that need to hear it. Meeting with George was this confirmation of where I am in my path and my focus, just to heal others and heal myself. Yeah, just that. So I came from not loving myself, like very simple. Not growing up in a harsh background of no empathy, no love. Didn't really understand it, didn't really comprehend it until I had the spiritual awakening and the journey that allowed myself to still now, to this day, focus on self-love and to receive the blessings of just that. And so when you're able to receive that, then you can authentically share it with others.
What is self-love?
Great question. So self-love is being present and authentically cherishing, honoring, and loving yourself. It's not in the way of narcissism, but just really unconditional love, because we grow up in a really hard matrix, and it tends to be very overwhelming. But learning how to understand the fundamental and basics of yourself, and being okay with yourself and not being hard on yourself, authentically loving yourself. And how I can lead by example is more of like when I'm training in the past, I was very hard on myself, not learning certain moves or not getting things done in a certain time frame, and being very aggressive, talking bad about myself, screaming at myself, and then lashing out on others. I didn't have a point of reference of self-love until the spiritual awakening.
And then what is it, do you think, that it's about men in our current culture that makes it difficult for us to love ourselves? Is that something that has to do with our background or the conditioning of the culture, or what, in your opinion, is preventing us from attaining that self-love when we're adults?
I will specify everything that you stated. So it could be the background, your parents, the society structures, systems, television, media, all of it. And men are supposed to be alpha males, super strong. And of course, like, that's one of the aspects of being a man, but understanding that you have to be more conscious and like mindful of the programming, which is more about loving, because when the heart is open, when your heart is open, there is no limitation. There are no boundaries and borders. And so we're in this system where everything has to be a certain way, like you have to be a douchebag or to be mean or super aggressive. And we're taught and programmed this, and we don't have no point of reference. And so now when you have this awakening, like, you understand that everything was there to kind of hold us back from loving ourselves. And that tends to be very difficult and really hard.
So I think we're touching on something that's really important here. That, combined with what you said earlier about authenticity, I think is something that can really help us get there. And that is being willing and honest enough with yourself to show up as your authentic self, with the ability to articulate your needs, with the ability to hold a mature conversation and not feel like you have to be masquerading as somebody else.
Absolutely. And I feel like when you're coming from the heart, not from the mind, when the heart is open, then you're able to comprehend and able to deliver this message of what that just is. So I grew up blaming my father and my stepfather for not being the man to help me and raise me and physically abusing. And learning how to open my heart, I understand that they had their past and their wounds and their traumas, and they were never really addressed. So all I can do is embrace and still love them because they did the best that they could do at that point in time. So with this in mind, once I accept this and I'm moving forward with that, I can break the generational cycle or the negative cycle by showing and giving love, and therefore I'm actually loving myself in the process.
A lot of what you're talking about has to do with forgiveness and the ability to see those people as people who are operating to the best of their abilities at that time.
Absolutely.
And being willing to let go of a lot of anger, especially anger, that is so toxic and gets in the way of our ability to self-love. What are some of the things that we can do as men to diminish the resentment and anger that we've carried forward from, stuff that we might feel even subconsciously resentful towards our parents about?
Wow, that's an excellent question. Ways to alleviate. I would say number one is being honest with yourself, being authentic and honest with yourself, being true and genuine. Like we tend to prove ourselves or try to not really acknowledging the programs that come up, but when you're able to identify them and to accept them, that's the first stage. And then process number two would be self-help books or meditation, or I don't know if I can say it here, but journeys are just more spiritual work that allows you to be more present and be honest with what you're dealing with, because we all have programs. I'm still dealing with things that I'm still working on to this day, but therefore I know that I have these programs and they're still going to come up. But once you can identify them, then that's the first stage towards moving forward, and then allowing yourself to being around loving individuals. But that comes again from loving yourself and taking time out for yourself, honoring yourself, pampering yourself, taking yourself out, building a genuine connection and relationship with yourself, which is typically hard in this day and age. But these are tools that help me really find the way to be present with myself, and that means just taking time out for yourself.
There's a couple things that come up when you start talking about that. One is the need that a lot of us have for the external validations, like somebody else's love, some award or accolade, or some other external validation that we think is going to come to us from something or someone else that can really get in the way of self-love. Now I want to talk about that, diminishing, how to diminish those, but also how to feel satisfied with what you're able to give yourself, because that's for me the hardest thing I've been struggling with, is how do I generate that within myself without seeking it from external sources?
Excellent question, George. Again, I believe that, just from my experience in spiritual journey and awakening, everything comes from the heart. And when the heart is open, there are no borders, no boundaries. Everything is just there is infinite. And when you're coming from the mind has programs and structures. Programs running, right?
What do you mean by programs? What does that mean?
I would say social conditioning. From your family, friends, media, television, circles. Just things that you do on the daily, and most importantly, the subconscious mind, which is always in circulation, always running. So being mindful of those things. So rewiring. But once you're able to come from the heart, then all that will diminish. And that's from the spiritual work and the spiritual journey. So again, My wife has had the similar situations where she's operating from the mind, and I have too in the past, the mind. But when you're able to open up authentically from the heart, then there is no limitations, no borders, no boundaries. And again, whatever information that you're getting, do your best to try to tune it out or find a better balance of not always consuming things that's not going to put you in harmony.
Another thing that we had talked about when we met for coffee was this whole idea of attraction and attracting the things that you are seeking externally that you think are going to fulfill you. The universe will provide those things for you and teach you over and over and over again that they're not going to fulfill you.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Like, I have asked for these things in my life. Like, oh, I just want, the beautiful, funny girl, or the amazingly beautiful, like, fit girl. And of course, like,
But
because
you got that.
And I got those things.
But
I did.
But you didn't ask. But you didn't ask for the girl that's going to benefit you in ways that you need spiritually. Like, you want to have the girl that's, that's beautiful, obviously, but beautiful inside and out. Not just physical beauty, but the spiritual and the inner beauty is just as important, because you'll get what you ask for. So you ask for a beautiful girl, right? A beautiful woman, but you got that. But you didn't ask for, I want this quality in this woman.
No.
So it's very important to be mindful and conscious of what you're asking for, because you will get that. And if you're asking for things that you don't want, you'll get that just as well.
So that goes back to something that I think that we can, when we start talking about how to self-love, right? It's about creating a list of standards for yourself that you're not willing to compromise upon in favor of some external validity. Like, and one thing that we can do as men is create those lists. Like, when I'm looking for my next relationship, that person has to have self-esteem and self-love and the ability to listen and the ability to connect on a spiritual level, rather than like brains, beauty, and humor and money.
Yeah.
So that, we can have that list and have cognition of those things that we're looking for, and don't settle beneath your standards in favor of something that you might think makes you look good.
Absolutely. Thanks for clarifying that. But as I said before, when you go within and you lead from the heart, you're not even going to have to write down a list, because you're going to attract everything naturally. When the heart is open, there's expansion. That means that there is no borders, no boundaries. And the universal consciousness or God source is going to give you what you need, as long as your heart is open and you're willing to keep that heart open, and you're knowing, you're going to automatically attract that. All the abundance of whatever you want into your life when your heart is completely open.
If you were talking to some young kid who was 15 and in high school and mad at the world and hating his parents and pissed off at his teachers and fucking full of rage, how would you tell him or her to open their heart?
Oof, that's a good question. I believe that everything has a time and place, and maybe that person has to go through this journey to realize where they are, to manifest and to evolve into the future. Again, everyone's path and purpose is different, and maybe that person needs to experience being this purpose, being in this frequency, because that's how they're going to learn. Because maybe in the previous life they were already a very good person, and then how life works, you have to experience all dualities. So to answer your question, I would say when the person is open and willing to seek the information, they're going to find it, and that information is going to come to them when they're seeking it. But if they're just in their ways and just being okay and being comfortable with being in that frequency vibration, then they're going to stay there.
At some point, you realize that shit doesn't work anymore, and you have to make a change. Most people...
No, like you have to want to make a change. Not have to, you want to. Big difference. You have to want it. Not, oh, I have to do it out of necessity for others. No, you want to do it for yourself.
Right. And a lot of, I think, what gets you there is just the repeated failures of either relationships or business ventures that leave you on the floor,
Yep.
crying real tears, and you just kind of go, what the fuck? This isn't working. I'm going to have to investigate the reasons behind my continual failures and attraction of these situations. So let me ask you about, I think that this is directly related to healing your inner child wounds and the fact that you're trying to make up for something that happened when you were a kid, where maybe somebody told you weren't good enough, or you felt like you weren't good enough, or there was something wrong with you. And ever since then, in these emotionally barren landscapes that some of us grow up in, you and me both, you are left without the tools for self-love, and you have to go back and heal that shit where it started. Talk about your experiences with that a little bit.
Wow, I just got goosebumps with what you said. And thank you all for the kind of VNS. Thank you. Wanting to change creates reality of their dreams. Yes, thank you so much for tuning in. Wow. So when I went through my spiritual awakening and my teachings, I was not able to really fully accept them. It was really hard, like accepting all the darkness and all the things that you don't like about yourself, not willing to accept it. But as
what specific things? What are you talking about?
Facing the frequency of that state of mind where you was when something traumatic happened. If I got physically beat, or something was embarrassing, or I was shown a very dysfunctional way of love, and then therefore it created my mind to create a weird dysfunctional way of loving myself, and then therefore I was lashing out on other people. But really facing those ugly things was not easy. But through the awakening medicine, I had to learn how to accept it. And once you learn to accept it and forgive yourself and forgive that moment and that time,
and those people,
most importantly, those people, like forgiving yourself and then forgiving those people and that event, then you're able to move forward authentically. I'm not going to say it's going to work 100%, but you're on your way. Now you're on the road walking towards where you need to be. And so everyone's path is going to be different, because some people are super stubborn. I've been in some ceremonies where people, after 10 cycles, didn't get it because they're not allowing themselves to be open. Sometimes the mind is very strong, and the mind is created to protect itself, right? So if you grow up in a certain frequency or a vibration, your mind only knows that. So its job is to protect what it knows, its normality. But when you're going in to seek yourself and to find more love and peace, the mind is like trying to come in to protect. But it's the heart's job to override all that, because at the end of the day, you're going to save yourself.
A friend of mine who's an inner child healing guide said the mind would rather be right than happy. So,
ooh, did you hear that? Ooh, wow, that was powerful. Yes.
And she says we've spent decades telling ourselves X, Y, and Z, and the mind will protect that truth that it believes over any sort of healing.
Exactly. It's the mind's job to just protect. It's like the body and the mind is always going to protect. Like your body and mind is always going to adapt. And I can't blame the mind, and thank you, mind, for doing its job. But essentially, it's about like the true healing, and the healing is going to come from the heart. Remember, operate from your heart, not from your mind. The heart is expansion. The heart is. There is no borders and boundaries when it comes from the heart. The mind is programmed.
So this same healer, this woman, her name's Shauna, she's amazing, offered me the opportunity to heal my inner child, which in theory I always thought, yeah, great. Oh, hey, little buddy, I got you. You know, you're good.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know was that there's people who can help you arrive at those places where these core wounds happen. And in my case was when I was a kid, you know, I was born with a very, very lazy eye like this. I was the ugliest baby. And my parents...
Not ugly, unique.
Yes, unique. My parents, my inner child's crying right now because I called it ugly. He's mad.
You see how you're like talking to yourself
Yep.
and you're self-inflicting yourself? Change the wording, because when you operate from here, the love, you're gonna say, "Oh, I'm just uniquely different." Instead of calling yourself ugly or whatever, no, it's you are unique. So number one, starting with here first, being conscious of everything you're saying, what you're doing, and the intention. So today, no more ugly, it's unique.
This unique baby was brought into this world, and the parents, being, you know, emotionally unavailable as they were, thought there was something wrong with the baby. So I spent like 2 years with them trying to fix some shit.
Yeah.
And so ever since then, love you, Mom. Love you so much. Forgive you. But these emotionally unavailable parents who were, you know, alcoholics and gamblers and not present, spent, you know, a significant amount of time peering at this baby that was me and trying to fix it. So I carried forth the truth that there was something wrong with me, and have been living with that ever since, and have developed this rage and hatred for my parents for that and a bunch of other shit that went down, that this woman, Shauna, helped eradicate just by taking me to that source, in literally putting me in the room,
Pinpointing it, yeah.
and physically taking me there through a journey that was all based on her asking questions. I was in this room in fucking San Pablo, California, that I haven't thought of in 55 years, with my mother, seeing this happen, and getting permission to acknowledge the lie and heal and give that inner child the love that he needed, that he didn't get at the time. And then visualizing sucking that into myself in the form of white light. And then releasing all of the lies and feelings that of inadequacy, etc., in the form of shapes and colors into the sun, and getting gifts back. And it was this magical, surrealistic, psychedelic experience that happened without the help of any medicine or anything, that she perpetrated here in this room. So it was a miracle in a way of just self-awareness and getting to that point where you are allowed to recognize the core wounds and start that healing process by naming it and going there. And I think that, if we're going to get anywhere today, is kind of the foundation of self-love, is just realizing where these come from and how to manifest the healing around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, thanks for sharing. I just had goosebumps when you said it. Yeah, it's like the only way for you to understand it is to go there, and sometimes it's not easy. And there, you have a point of reference, and then you have to accept it. Accepting it. Okay, this is what happened. This is where it is. Okay. And we tend to want to hold on to things. It's like holding on to the hot potato. Why are we holding on to the hot potato before? I don't know why. We just want to hold on to things. Because someone's going to be, I'm still angry and mad.
Because that's the truth that we were talking, the mind would rather be right than happy.
There you go.
Yeah.
It boils down to the mind, but when the heart is expanded and it's open, you don't need to hold it anymore. You let it go, because then you understand that your parents had their wounds and those parents had those wounds. So it's a cycle that's just been happening. But you have the ability to change the cycle by just giving it love. Just like that. Which is incredible. And for me, I couldn't comprehend it until I experienced this love. And trust me, I grew up with anger and rage 24/7, and never serving me. I'm not a perfect person, but I am every day I'm working towards, and I can see. And so when I'm just authentic with myself and I'm loving myself, then I can put out that vibration of others to love themselves, and you're going to do the same. You're doing it right now.
Let's talk about the greatest block for self-love, and that's showing up as an imposter in your inauthentic self, thinking that you have to be some way, say something, represent yourself in some way that is not your authentic, true, grown-ass man self. Have you ever done that?
Yes. Just last week, I had to resign from an agency I was with. I'm in a union SAG after, and I had to resign my position as a national board member because I didn't align with how they treat others, treat themselves, and because it's called a union, right? And so in my book, union means union, not blaming, not shaming, not bullying, and I can't be a part of something that calls themselves a union and they're not. So I want to step into my leadership and be authentic and say, I can't allow myself or align myself with something like that. And I'm willing to reap the consequences of whatever that is because I'm going to stand behind what I believe in. So I hope I'm not going to what you're saying.
No, I think I can refine the question, and that's a very good example of how to stand within your fully realized self-love, power. Yeah. Have you ever felt the opposite, though, where you were going along with something? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Where you were going along with something that you didn't agree with, that was below your standards, because you felt like it externally validated you or created some sort of false narrative or false personage that wasn't what you agreed with.
In alignment.
Right, but you did it anyway. Yeah, that's the worst.
Yes, it's true. Sometimes, as a performer, dancer, I would perform with individuals that I wasn't really resonating with or aligning myself with, and this is before my awakening. And deep down inside, I knew, I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel well with their message and how they performed or what they did. And so, yes, there were many times where I didn't feel in alignment with what I was doing for certain jobs, of course, performance, entertainment, dance, or certain individuals. Yes, so I can definitely identify with that and didn't feel good knowing that. But now looking back, now thinking about it, I forgive myself for those moments as well. But yeah, it's really important to follow your truth and stand by what you believe in, because it's you and it's your purpose and your path. And God gives you a gift to just focus on just that, stand in your lane and be strong.
What about in your personal relationships, whether they be romantic or family or stuff like that, where you didn't stand in your higher truth and compromised your standards? Have you ever done that?
Yes, actually, George is bringing the questions today. He's bringing the amazing questions. Yes. Number one I can say was like me being in partnerships and relationships with people that wasn't serving me. It was very toxic, and I was just settling because I was afraid of being alone, or maybe because the sex was good, but I wasn't really in my purpose and in my path. I was just settling and allowing myself to get hurt, and like allowing myself to have a person talk to me in a very destructive or very toxic ways, and I was just taking it. And now thinking about it, I was like, why was I allowing myself to do that? Because I wasn't loving myself. So it boils down to self-love. Like when you love yourself, you're not going to allow yourself to be a part of something that's not serving you, and still giving it love and giving it support from afar. But you don't have to subject yourself and subscribe to things that's not serving you. So I've been in many relationships where I was attracting the same person, the same type of archetype into my life, because I wasn't loving myself. So I got the same thing over and over and over. And when I started to open myself up and start to love myself and change my thought process, I attracted a new person into my life that allowed me to be on the path where I'm supposed to be.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the core element of the message, I think, is the self-love is not allowing yourself to diminish your standards or live below what you think you deserve just because of some external validation, whether it be beauty, sex, money, drugs, how you think that person makes you look to the outside world, etc. So you're willing to kind of subjugate your standards and take crumbs, dude, is basically what's happening. You're just getting shit on because you're allowing that shit.
You're allowing it. And thank you for clarifying. Yeah, you know, we're always allowing ourselves, even, you know, living in a system, in these structures, like we're just allowing ourselves to be subjected to things that we don't agree with, like government, politics, whatever. I want to go into it too deep, but we are literally allowing ourselves to be in a situation where allowing ourselves to be okay with things that don't serve us. And so when you do the inner work, the awareness is really deep, and then you understand why you have so much rage and so much anger and so much tension, and sometimes you feel like crying and you don't understand because there's limitation. And sometimes the crying is crying is a sense of healing. It's your body's way of like releasing tension or whatever it is. Crying is a good thing, but knowing that when the heart opens and expands, you realize that you was not really allowing yourself to really thrive. So when you open this, come from here, it's a step forward towards liberation.
Speaking of crying, that's kind of what led me to this journey. And, you know, I'm 55 years old and I'm just now making these discoveries and really being willing to be vulnerable and self-honest enough to like acknowledge some of the mistakes I've made in my behavior and my choices and my relationships. But I recently went through a breakup and I was bawling on this floor like an old man at a funeral for 6 fucking days, dog. Like 6 straight days. And I said, this can't be from a breakup.
No.
It can't. These are tears from the bottom of the well.
These are like compacted wounds on top of like, these are wounds. And I believe like sometimes when you're at your lowest is when you just wake up and you see the light. Like you have to go to the very bottom and be like, you know what? Something needs to change. And those wounds are your highest teachers. Like you should be grateful for those things because that's going to allow you to wake up. So I'm actually grateful for all the trauma and pain I've been through because I'm here now where I am because of that. So those are your teachers.
And you said something like something has to change. That's where we have to want it ourselves, like you were talking about earlier, right?
Absolutely.
So through these tears, I was like, this is I gotta go back to the fucking source of these tears because it's not. This is like the last link of a chain.
That's a trigger. It's a trigger. Like those are different triggers that allow you to be like, okay, this is something else. But then you realize that something had to change. Your frequency changed, and therefore the frequency puts you in a position where you can be more open to listening to things that's going to serve you. Like listen to my videos, or you're doing more self-work. And so when you are willing to make that change, that's when the opportunity and blessings come to you because you want it authentically.
Exactly. And that was the impetus for this like very, very, very new healing process that I've been embarking upon just because it was so painful to sit there and reconcile with those tears. And I just didn't know that where they were coming from. And so it gets to this like journey of self-discovery where you go back and you acknowledge all that shit that we talked about earlier with your parents who were, you know, less than ideal, emotionally unavailable, abusive, drunk, gambling addicts, toxic, and we're just not there to show us any foundational emotional support at all. And a lot of people grow up like that, and we wonder why, you know, there's narcissism, there's self-hatred, there's failed relationships, there's
failed marriages, everything.
Failed marriages, broken communities. And I heard somebody say, you know, you're not responsible for your trauma, but you are responsible for healing it.
Ooh, wow, he said it. Oh man, I just got goosebumps right away. He said it's so true. It's again, the parents had their wounds. Like, just think about them. Think about them not even having a reference of where to go to find their peace and their salvation. you're actually the fortunate one to say, okay, I've been there, had my pain, but now you're consciously aware that you had it. Some people are not even consciously aware because it's the norm. So you have to give them blessings and love from afar to heal them so you can heal yourself. And again, it comes down to like consumption. Like, what are you consuming? The media, the circles, the environment, the circles, your friends, even what you're eating, who's making your food. You have to be conscious about everything that's going into your life, being conscious about every little thing. And when the heart is open, then you're going to take it from a different perspective, and therefore you know how to navigate in a different way, but more loving, accepting it. And now you're going to charge versus negative impact your body.
And I think the most important element of that is something we touched on earlier, which is the messages you're sending yourself. Like the things that you're telling yourself about what you deserve, the way you talk to yourself, the way you say, if you're disparaging yourself and telling yourself you're an idiot or you're not lovable or you're broken, those messages reinforce. However, if you're able to rewire your point of view through forgiveness and through cognition of the fact that, you have to forgive these people in your life and they are the greatest teachers. And then you start telling yourself, I deserve better and I love myself. Everything changes.
Absolutely. I'm so inspired by this talk because we feel like, the world needs this. It's just straight raw. Like no faces, no acting, but coming from the heart, like being authentic. And if I didn't go through my experiences, I wouldn't be here right now. And I felt the call to just be genuine and being authentic because I truly feel that transparency builds trust. Trusting yourself and trusting others and coming from that place. We're in a sick society, just being straight up. We're in a sick society and nobody even realizes that we are in a sick society. But being sick, you can always get better and heal. And so right now, our mission and focus is just on wellness and self-love and progression and evolution, and that comes from just being raw with yourself, being honest, with yourself, identifying, and then the solution coming from the heart and love.
If you'd asked me a year ago if I would be sitting here talking about how to self-love with some other dude, I told you what the fuck you talking about?
Oh my God. Bro, my best friend, one of my good friends' best friend, was diehard 20 years meth, alcoholism for 20 years. And it wasn't until I got my spiritual awakening that I woke up. And I had the call to tell him, to say, hey, you're loved. I love you. And it's time for you to, start loving yourself and step up and come to this, spiritual awakening. And since then, he's been a changed man. And see, you know how that works is when your heart is open and you're like receiving information. Your intuition is your highest technology, and we tend to always downplay it. Like, oh, when something doesn't feel right, it's your intuition. And God gives you this gift to use it. So be mindful of that. Like, be conscious of just that. Like, listen to your higher self. Your future infinite self is telling you, hey, you need to wake up. You need to step your game up in this department. So be willing to receive. Sorry if I'm going off, but I just feel I'm just very, very vocal about how I say things. But
no, it's what that means to me. What you just said is that these messages from
yourself,
yourself and the universe are not always correct. For example, advertising subsists on telling us that we're not good enough, and therefore we need X, Y, and Z products. Your parents, because of their emotional ineptitudes, are reflecting their own insecurities onto you and saying, "Oh, you're not good enough because it's like," but that's a lie. And as soon as we start elevating our standards and practicing self-love and practicing self-care and practicing the way we talk to ourselves and the way we show up for ourselves and the way we authenticate our experiences and ourselves and present that to other people, you start to attract a much higher quality of life, a much higher quality of person, just because you're not exhausted by trying to be someone you're not.
Exactly. And that's a lot of weight. Think about the weight that you have with your life already, you know, all your traumas and your pains, and then trying to mask yourself, trying to accept yourself in a sick society. That's so much weight. That's so much weight. And, you know, now we know why people are always stressed and don't have energy and drinking energy drinks, because it's so much. But when you drop all that weight, when you learn to drop that weight, then you're floating. So, you know, just being conscious of that it's so much weight. Like, I knew that I had so much weight. I'm like, why am I have so much? And when you awaken, you realize that you're holding on to so much. And, you know, me, in the past, I was told, oh, you know, boys and men can't cry. It's not man to cry. But I realized that most of my healing was coming from crying to release all this tension and pain.
If you're trying to date someone or you have a crush on someone, if you show up as your authentic self without any pretense of who you are or who you think you're supposed to be to attract that person, if that person is legitimately for you, you will attract them.
There you go.
If you show up as your authentic self and they are not attracted to that, run the other way as fast as you can.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. Like, everything is vibration, and it's all about, like, frequency. It's a match. Like, so you're gonna match what you're thinking about. So I was always attracting the worst partner in my life because I was, in my mind, not the right person. So I was attracting just that. Or you could attract somebody that's in your life. You can attract someone that's good for you, but you're not able to receive that person because you're not loving yourself. That person could be perfect for you. They can change your life, and you're not there to receive it because you're not loving yourself. So being conscious of just that, like, hey, she may be pretty or he may be a good-looking guy, but don't get caught up in the looks. Like, focus on the vibration. Like, this person's going to give you. So start loving yourself first, having a relationship with yourself first. Be your best friend, and therefore you're going to attract the perfect person into your life, in my opinion.
And you will know right away,
you'll know right away
if you feel like you're compromising your standards or if this is not authentic.
Yeah.
And I have spent many, many years in relationships where I knew right off the rip, day one, those red flags, painted them green, bro.
Yeah.
Just because I thought, like,
hot,
sexy, rich, beautiful, funny, good fuck, like, bring it, love you, baby.
Yeah.
I knew
these
were wrong for me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't living as my authentic self, and I wasn't presenting my authentic self. And that can last for a week, a year, 2 years, 3 years, but eventually that's gonna crumble.
Or the thing too is that maybe you didn't understand or had the consciousness to even really know who you are, because you can't be authentic if you don't know who you are. So your point of reference was from pain, or, you know, was from not being accepted or self-love. So when you have a new reference, because the love is, there's no boundaries. Like, love is infinite, right? So once you have that point of reference, there's no going back to the old ways. So when you have this new awakening, it's going to work slow, just like roots. It's going to just work slow. It's going to grow, right? And so you're going to start loving yourself. And when that happens, and when you're authentic and you're genuine about it, you're going to attract events, people, and circumstances in your life that's going to allow you to thrive.
And you won't attract the things that have been familiar patterns in the past.
They're going to fade away.
They will, and you won't be attracted to those anymore.
No.
You'll recognize it and go, oh, I know exactly what that is.
My God.
I'm not attracted to that anymore because I have become a more fulfilled, self-loving human being.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. You know, it's a science. It's like, when I changed my mind and my frequency, my reality changed. So people I used to hang out with, the homies, certain type of music, going out to certain places to dance or doing jobs with certain people, all that naturally faded away. I didn't have to do anything. I just changed my frequency and everything. So when the mind is open, your reality opens. When the mind changes, your reality changes. So it's really important to come from the heart. Focus on the heart. Focus on things that you need and not want. What you need. You need love, self-care. So therefore, you can love others authentically and be real and attract the things that you deserve into your life.
I've had several situations in romantic partnerships where I knew that I should have walked away right off the rip.
Yeah.
But I stayed in it because I didn't love and respect myself enough to have a better standard.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this person is somehow providing something for me that I can't give myself, which is a lie.
It's a hook. They're
Yep.
hooking you.
And I'm a fucking old man. I'm 55 years old.
Perfect timing.
Just now.
Your perfect time though. It's the perfect time because everything is about timing. Maybe like 10 years ago you wasn't ready for this. Maybe you wasn't ready. Like you could have got the message and the information, but you probably wasn't able to receive it. Like I know myself, 10 years ago I was not able to receive any of this stuff. I was like, nah, that's a kumbaya. No, what are you talking about? Crazy. But I wasn't able to receive it. So everything is about timing, divine timing. Like it wasn't meant to be. And you know what? It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Where you are now, your age is okay. Right now is a perfect time for you to receive it because it's the right time.
Hallelujah.
It's the right time, bro.
I know.
It's the right time.
You know why it's the right time? Because I said, I want to change for the first time ever.
Did you hear that? Did you hear what he said? Because it came from you being authentic. You realize that you needed to change. You're over it, and sometimes you have to be in the darkest pit of the world or the corner or whatever. To you're like, I need to get myself out, but you gotta want to.
I was married for a long time to it was challenging. It was challenging. I'll just say that. And after we divorced, I thought, I'm going to go meet some woman on the internet. Now's my chance. And so the universe provided that woman for me on the internet.
Absolutely.
The one that I thought was going to be the penultimate.
Yeah.
And because neither one of us showed up as our authentic selves, it just couldn't sustain.
Yeah.
And that's why I cried. Because I was like, I just spent a whole bunch of time living a lie, trying to be somebody I wasn't, and it just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. So sooner or later it's gonna come out and you're gonna explode. Yeah, and like I'm proud of you. I love you, man, and I'm so happy to hear that you found it and you like gave yourself what you needed and what you wanted. This is why we're here. Like, people always downplay technology. Oh, it's bad, but like we're using it for good. And now we're here to share this message of, you're loved, love yourself. Focus on just that, upgrade. So my practice, Cyber Yoga, is about upgrade, mental, physical, and spiritual upgrade. I came from not the nicest person in the world, and I know in my past lives I probably wasn't a really good person, but I know in this timeline now I know like my purpose and my mission. Our mission is to focus on just that self-love, to love others.
Love yourself, people. Let's do this.
Yeah.
We're gonna clip it because I think we've we're at the
Absolutely.
Anything else is diminishing marginal returns from here on out.
Stay tuned for the next episode, next topic. Sending love. Thank you guys.
Bye, y'all.